Okay, here's another hotspot. Told you guys, we're gonna be hitting some hotspots. And we're doing the Middle East. And what did Tupac say? War in the street, war in the Middle East. Okay, let's talk about Iran, which I don't know. I mean, is it Middle East? I don't really understand the exact boundaries of the Middle East. Historic Persia, though, we know, one of the great empires of all time. And we know that they discovered oil in Iran. We talked about this in the early 1900s, that the British had moved in and were taking a lot of the oil, that the Soviets wanted to have some influence there as well, and that Iran kind of started to buddy up with Germany to try and go against their friend, or the British and the Soviets, who were maybe trying to influence Iran too much, maybe trying to take their oil too much. I'm not sure how you want to put it. But America had always been considered kind of trustworthy. I mean, in fact, we know that America was maybe the most respected country in the Middle East following World War II. And America and Iran had fine relations. America was becoming more powerful, and they wanted to continue to have Britain to have oil deals in Iran because Britain was our good friend. But America was considered to be pretty trustworthy. And in 1952, Iran has an election, and instead of choosing the traditional power who had gone back after World War II and was close again with Britain, and during World War II, Britain and the Soviet Union invade Iran. But they were still able to get their oil, right? But in 1952, Iran elects a man named Mohammad Mossadegh. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that name. And one of the first things this man does is he nationalizes the oil industry. For decades, we know that Great Britain had been in control of Iran's oil industry. Of course, the U.S., great friend to Great Britain. They used to love the relationship. They used a lot of the soil. They bought a lot of the oil. This is ARCO, okay, BP. And as a result of this election, he says, no more, Britain. Sorry, no more free oil or cheap oil, or you guys aren't going to be so influential here with our oil. It's our oil. It's in our land, and we're going to sell it at fair market value. No more. And in Britain had spent lots of money building oil refineries and stuff there. He says, enough's enough. It's been a long time. No more. And Britain and America said no. This was, by the way, let's just look. This is the man. His name is Mohammed Mossadegh. And America and Britain say no. Say, we don't like this. I don't agree. And what they do is they overthrow his government. They launch a coup, a military coup against Iran. They overthrow Iran's democratically elected leader, and they put in their own guy that would continue to allow them to control Iran's oil. They call this guy the Shah of Iran. Shah is Persian for king. Here's a picture of President Dwight Eisenhower with the Shah of Iran. This angers many Iranians, obviously. No one likes when their democratically elected leader is overthrown by the big, strong, powerful country on the other side of the world, so that the big, strong, powerful country's buddy can continue to take their oil at a very cheap or free, very reduced price. I don't know if it could have been free. Obviously. And Well, this continues on for a few decades. And in Iran, some of these religious people aren't happy. Also, look, culturally in Iran during this time, Western values are becoming more prevalent. The religious leaders don't like that. They don't like the fact that their oil is being taken from them. They don't like the fact that the US and the British overthrew a democratically elected leader. And in 1970, a guy named Ayatollah Khomeini, who's this guy right here? He starts a movement in Iran, and he's going to try to get rid of the Shah, get rid of the American puppet, the guy who America's guy there, the American installed leader. And in 1979, 9 years later, Ayatollah, Ayatollah Khomeini launches a revolution against the Shah of Iran. That is successful. Supporters of the Shah were killed or left Iran. There was a mass exodus. And understand that a lot of the supporters of the Shah were moneyed people. These people had money. They were supporters of the Shah because they were business partners oftentimes with the Shah. They were successful in that Iran. And again, that Iran was westernizing. Things like the treatment of women, dressing style, were turning Western style, kind of like Turkey had been doing before that. And in 1979, the Iranians invade and take over the U.S. embassy in Iran. Now, quick history of embassies. The U.S. has embassies all around the world. Other countries have embassies in our country, and they're considered like off limits. Like, we never would mess with another country's embassy that's in America. That's theirs. That's their land. It's actually kind of considered to be their land. And our embassy in Iran was our land, right? And you see here, people would jump the wall. There's a movie about this called Fargo. Really interesting. Check it out. They take Americans hostage. They take 52 Americans who worked at this embassy. This was just a job. These were not rich, powerful people. These were not people who owned oil companies or any of that. They did not install the leader. These are government workers, okay, who just got a job in Iran. They take them hostage for more than a year. And there was an attempt by President Carter to free them. It failed. And finally, in 1980, they're released after Reagan takes over. We're going to find out that the U.S. is going to support. I'm not going to get too deep on this, but they're going to support Iraq in a war with Iran in the 80s. Even though then they turn around and support Iran too, because Iraq started to win and do dirty stuff. And ever since then, Iran and the US have not been friends. Currently, Iran is working on a nuclear bomb. During the presidency of Barack Obama, he had made a deal with Iran and said, look, if you guys stop, let me just say this. After September 11th, President Bush labeled Iran part of the axis of evil. That was the term he used. He said Iraq, Iran, and North Korea are part of the axis of evil. We should work against them. Some people say that was a big mistake. Iran had been working on a nuclear weapons program in that period. After that, they accelerated their weapons program, they were close to building a nuclear bomb. And the US does not want Iran to have a nuclear bomb because not only could that threaten the US, maybe it could threaten Europe, maybe it could threaten Israel. And Israel, as the US, is a really good friend at this point. Under President Obama, Obama made a deal and said, look, if you guys give up your nuclear program, we will unfreeze your money. Iran had a bunch of money in the bank in Europe that had been frozen because they were working on a nuclear weapons program. Iran agreed. As long as weapons inspectors are allowed to come in and check out your nuclear facilities and make sure that you're not making nuclear bombs. When President Trump won as president, he ran against this deal. He said this was a bad deal. And he then became president in 2016 and ended the deal. Since then, relations with Iran has started its nuclear weapons program up again. Now, there's never been fighting openly between the US and Iran. The closest, of course, was in 1979 at the embassy and the hostages. And then when Biden won, Biden said, I'm going to try and make another deal with Iran. And supposedly they're still trying to make a deal. But this is another hotspot of the world. We've talked about North Korea, Kashmir, Israel, Palestine, West Bank, now Iran. And I don't know what's going to happen. No one does. Well, maybe someone does. I shouldn't talk about that. People know, just not me. I'm a nobody. I don't know those kind of things.